The back office of the restaurant smells like garlic and bleach, and the safe is open longer than it should be because your hands won't stop shaking. $91,000, counted twice, sitting in a duffel bag that used to hold gym clothes. Upstairs, the dinner rush is still going, plates clattering, someone laughing too loud at the bar. Nobody down here yet. You have maybe 4 minutes before the manager comes back to check the register. You zip the bag. You don't know it yet, but the 4 minutes you're counting aren't the ones that matter. The ones that matter started 3 weeks ago, and they've been counting down the entire time. Level 1, the job that trusted you. You didn't plan this 6 months ago. 6 months ago, you were just the guy who did the books for a restaurant that everyone quietly understood belonged to people who didn't file honest tax returns. Cash business. 2 sets of numbers. A boss who paid you well specifically because you asked no questions and remembered nothing. You told yourself that not asking questions made you smart. It also made you invisible, which is exactly the condition somebody needs to become the person nobody suspects. The idea doesn't arrive all at once. It arrives in pieces, over weeks. Every time you watch a bag of cash get walked to a car and driven somewhere you're never told about, you start doing math you have no business doing. How much moves through this place in a week? How long the gap is between a Friday count and a Monday pickup? How much of it anyone would actually notice missing if the skim was small enough, slow enough, careful enough? You tell yourself you're not planning anything. You're just curious. That's the same lie everyone tells themselves right up until the night they stop being curious and start being decisive. Level 2. The skim. For a while, small works. You take a little off a Friday count, round numbers down instead of up. Let a delivery invoice run high and pocket the difference. Nobody counts a shortfall of $600 against a business that moves $40,000 in a weekend. The first month, you take less than you could. The second month, you take a little more because nothing happened the first month, and nothing happening starts to feel like permission. Here's what you don't understand yet, because you've never worked for people who count this carefully before. Organizations like this don't need forensic accountants to know when money is thin. They just need patience and a memory. A boss who's been skimmed before recognizes the shape of it before he can prove it. Numbers that used to feel round start feeling deliberately round. A pattern starts to exist before you've noticed you created one. You feel invisible. You are, for now, only because nobody's decided yet that it's worth the trouble of looking directly at you. Level 3, the night you stop being patient. Then an opportunity shows up that's bigger than anything you've taken before. A payment collection night with almost $100,000 sitting in a bag for less than an hour between count and pickup. You've thought about walking away with everything for months. In the abstract, the way people think about winning the lottery, this is the first time it stops being abstract. You tell yourself it's now or never, that a chance like this doesn't come back around. You don't sleep the night before. You go over the timing 4 times in your head like a man convincing himself a decision is a plan. You take it. All of it. You don't go home first. You don't say goodbye to anyone who might later be asked whether you seemed different that week. You get in a car you bought 2 months ago with cash under a name that isn't quite yours, and you drive until the restaurant is a city behind you, and the duffel bag is on the passenger seat, like something that might still change its mind about existing. Level 4, the discovery. The count comes up short before midnight. Not late enough to explain. Not small enough to write off. Someone checks the safe twice. Someone checks the register twice. Someone realizes the person who normally has the most convenient access and the least convenient alibi hasn't answered his phone in 6 hours. This isn't a business that calls the police when money goes missing. It handles its own math. What that means, practically, is that your disappearance gets noticed inside of an hour, not days, and the people looking for you aren't working from a case file built on subpoenas and warrants. They're working from something older and in some ways more efficient. A network of people who owe favors, who know people who have no obligation to read you your rights before they find you. Your old boss makes 2 phone calls that night. Neither of them is to the police. Level 5. The first names fall. Every disappearance leaves an outline of who might have helped, and yours is thinner than you think, but not thin enough. You have a cousin 2 states over you crashed with once during a bad year. You have a girlfriend from 18 months ago who still has your number saved under a joke nickname. You have a friend from high school who posted exactly once a photo that had your car visible in the background. None of these people did anything wrong. None of them know where you are right now. That has never been the requirement for a knock on the door. A man shows up at your cousin's apartment, polite, unhurried, asking when he last heard from you and whether you mentioned anywhere you like to go. Your cousin genuinely doesn't know. He says so. The man leaves a number that isn't attached to any department, and your cousin spends that night deciding whether to be scared for you or scared of what he's just become part of. Level 6. The money moves differently than you do. You've been careful about your face. You have not been careful enough about the money. $91,000 in cash is heavy in a way. People who've never carried it don't understand, both physically and in every decision that comes after it. You can't deposit it anywhere near your name without questions. You can't spend it in large amounts without drawing attention in whatever small town you've decided to disappear into. So you break it into pieces. Motel rooms paid in cash, a car repair paid in cash, groceries paid in exact bills you count out slowly enough that a clerk remembers you counting them. Every one of those small transactions is invisible to the people looking for you individually. Together, over 3 weeks, they start forming the outline of a route, a man moving steadily southwest, spending carefully, never using a card, never staying anywhere more than 4 nights. Nobody has to trace a bank account. They only have to talk to enough people along a plausible line between where you started and where you might be going, and wait for someone to remember a face that matched a description they'd been given. Level 7. The favor that finds you. It isn't a professional who spots you first. It's an old associate of your former boss, someone who used to run a legitimate storage business, who gets a call one afternoon that has nothing to do with storage. Has he seen anyone matching this description, driving this kind of car, paying for anything in cash the way someone avoiding a paper trail would? He hasn't. But he mentions the call to a cousin who manages a motel 2 towns over, the way people mention strange calls to family without thinking much of it. The cousin remembers a guest from the week before, quiet, cash only, left before checkout on the 4th morning instead of the usual weekly rate. He didn't think anything of it at the time. He thinks about it now. That's how information like this actually moves, not through wiretaps and databases, but through the ordinary human habit of mentioning things to people you trust, none of whom fully understand what they're actually confirming when they do. Level 8. The room. You've told yourself for 3 weeks that moving every few days is enough, that cash is untraceable, that nobody organized enough to actually find you would bother chasing $100,000 across state lines. You are wrong about the math and wrong about the patience. The men who show up outside your motel room don't kick in the door. They don't need to. They knock quietly. The way people knock when they already know you're not going to run, because there's nowhere left in the room to run to. What happens next isn't cinematic. There's no negotiation, no speech, no moment where you get to explain yourself. There's a conversation you don't get to walk away from, and a debt that was never going to be settled through a courtroom. Unlike a federal case, there's no public docket here, no press release, no sentence with a release date attached. The system that comes looking for you when you steal from people who operate outside the law doesn't share its methods, and it doesn't share its outcomes. You spent 3 weeks certain that distance and cash were the same thing as safety. What actually found you wasn't a database or a warrant. It was a cousin who mentioned a strange phone call, a motel clerk who remembered exact change, and an old boss who never once called the police because he never needed to. The money you took bought you 3 weeks. The people you couldn't fully disappear from were always going to be the ones who decided how the story ended. If you want to understand how the rest of these networks actually operate before it's ever this close to your own door, subscribe. The next file opens soon.